Welcome to the Reader Experiments, Episode 1, Location. This is the start of a new series that I'm going to do called the Reader Experiments, and this is going to be a series of videos in which I'm testing out the best way to read. I've been very curious recently as to my preferred best place to read and trying to step out of my comfort zone to find really fun, unique ways to read and what is going to be best for me. I fully intend to redo some of these experiments too, because I'm certain that weather and season will affect them. So currently it is July, so our base weather here is going to be hot, sunny, summer weather. And for our very first experiment, we are going to be testing out locations for reading. Later on, we are going to be testing out things to listen to, ways to read, times to read, so many other things. If you have ideas, please put them down below. But today, and for the next few days on my part, we are going to be testing out location. So I picked some inside my home, some just outside my home, pretty close by, and then some pretty far away from my home to see where I most enjoy reading and how much reading I can get done in those places. So I've picked out 10 different locations for me to test out in today's video. I am not going to get them all done today. That's just not going to happen. I intend to read for an hour in each location, so this is going to be across several days. I am hoping to start with one book and get into the next book, so I know it's going to be different because it will be different books. So there's a lot of things going into these experiments that I cannot control. I remember back in my high school and college science days that you need to have everything be controlled except for the one thing that you are manipulating. And so this video, the thing I'm manipulating is location, but there are just gonna be things that I cannot control. Once I finish a book, I'm not gonna reread it, I'm gonna pick up the next book, and things like that. I'm gonna try to stay relatively consistent with how tired I am, what each day is like for me, because some days I just want to read more than others. So we're gonna do our best, and that is also why I'm gonna be redoing these experiments in different seasons to see how it affects me. But here are the 10 locations that I will be testing out in today's video. In the in my house category, I have in my reading chair, in my bed, and at the kitchen table. Those are 3 places that I read the most often anyway, so I wanted to throw them in here to see how they compare to other things. And in the outside my house but close by category, I have by the pool, in a coffee shop, in a bar, in the library, and at the park. So those are all locations that I can get to within 5 minutes and that I feel relatively comfortable reading in. And then the last 2 that are further away are in the car with a beautiful view and on top of a hike. I've read in both those locations plenty of times over the years, especially when I'm traveling, so I'm very curious to see how they compare to the locations that are closer to home. Again, I am going to set a 1-hour timer. We're going to see how many pages I get through, so it's going to be a quantifiable category of how many pages I read in that hour. But it's also going to be an enjoyment metric, like how much fun did I have while reading in that location for that hour. These probably aren't going to be in the order that I said, so let's go ahead and jump right into the first location. Okay, so for the first location, I'm gonna do in my bed. It's like 11:15 at night, and this is typically when I read right before I go to bed, so this is totally the normal of right before I go to sleep after being on my computer for hours and working. So this is a normal setup for me. So I'm very interested as to how many pages I can get through in an hour under my normal reading in bed situation. The downfalls to this is that I am going to be reading Legendborn tonight, and I'm 45% of the way through it, but I read this first section 5 months ago, and I had to do a pause on the book because I was getting overwhelmed. And so not only are we reading late at night, horizontal in my bed after a full day of working, but we're also jumping into a heavy fantasy series with a lot of hype and incredibly small text. So I still have 250, 300 pages left of this book. I feel like it's going to translate over. I'll be able to use this for multiple locations. But yeah, I'm certain that my page count is going to be lower than normal. Oh, I'm also tabbing the book, which also takes more time than normal. I just got to a pretty intense part and my timer went off and it scared the crap out of me. So I just got to page 281 and I started at 227. So that's actually pretty good for tabbing and rereading and you know, small text and whatnot. I thought I'd be tired and would want to read slower, or even not even be able to finish that whole hour, but I was thrown right back into the story and things were getting good, so quite happy with this. We will see how the rest of the locations compare. Alright, it is the next day. I didn't get to read at all today, but that's okay because we are going to test out the second location on this list, which is going to be my reading chair. It is also, once again, 11:13 p.m. and we will be reading for 1 hour. We will see. It's going to be a very situation as last night, picking right up where we left off. We will see how the enjoyment is reading from my reading chair for an hour very late at night. My timer just went off and I've been finishing at 336 pages. I don't know exactly how far I got. I think I read about the same. I think this was 55 pages. I was worried I was gonna get tired, but I think sitting up really helped. And although it's not as comfortable as the bed, in some ways it is more comfortable. Like, I'm not lying down, but I'm also not like curled up in a weird way. So I do love my reading chair. I do have to like switch around my legs a few times though. For the book itself, things are getting very, very good. So many things are happening and I have a ton of theories, but I feel like I can't even formulate theories because there's just more things I gotta learn. It's so much fun though. For enjoyment in the chair, I think it's pretty nice. I'm comfortable. You know, I'm in my little corner. It's, you know, maybe not the comfiest chair in the world, but it is pretty comfy. Alright, and it's past 12:30. I am tired. Okay, I just parked downtown because today our next location is going to be a coffee shop. So I picked one of my favorites. I'm hoping I'll be able to get a nice comfy table so I can sit there and read for an hour. I am definitely ready for a coffee, and I will see. I'm gonna try to keep... I want to have my headphones off so that I can like really experience the cafe, but also I don't want my timer to go off, so I might be putting on my headphones at least partway through so that it only like alerts me and not everybody else. I'm pretty sure I read like the exact same amount of pages as normal, so so far location isn't doing anything for me. I didn't end up putting my headphones on at all. I was just like watching the timer and I cut it with like 4 seconds left. But overall, I really enjoyed my time in the cafe. I didn't get a booth seat because there were a ton of people there working, but I did get like a comfy-ish chair and I just got sucked right into the book. So I really enjoyed my time there. The AC was really nice. My drink was really good. I enjoyed really having that there and just like being in a situation where nothing else could distract me. Like, I got sucked into the book and like the hour flew by so fast. My timer did end though right in the middle of a super important flashback scene and I did not want to stop. So I drove myself to the park, which is going to be my next location for reading. A little bit of it is under construction over that way. They're putting in a new playground, but thankfully I think the rest of the park is okay. So I'm gonna do some walking around, find a good bench in the shade, and then we're going to continue the read and do another hour to test the next location, which is the park. It is though insanely hot, so we will see. It's 3:17 p.m. and it's like 90 degrees outside, so I might not like the park because it's hot, but maybe it'll be nice. Who knows? We will be testing our first outdoor location out of several. Read exactly 50 pages, which is a little bit less than all the other locations, but it was because I kept looking up every time like a dog would walk past or I was watching the ducks for like a minute. So there's a lot of distractions, but like pretty good distractions. I was also distracted by the weather. For a second there, I thought it was gonna start raining on me, and so that kind of made me pause for a second. So I definitely don't read as much when I'm at the park, but it is very fun. When the sun was out, there was a portion, because I'm sitting under a tree, there was a portion in which I was in the sun, and it was very hot and it was not very enjoyable. But then the clouds started coming in and I was fine, but then they started coming in too much and I was less fine. So enjoyment of the park is still pretty high, but it's really dependent on the weather. So that's definitely a minus point for it, but I am freaking in it now. Big things are happening in this book, so I think I'm gonna go pick another location and just keep going today. Okay, I'm now at my favorite cidery. Pages left. I'm not stopping. Okay, so funny story. It's actually October 14th. So I really have no excuses other than the fact that I've been out of town quite a lot, and I'm finally like back in the space to be able to continue this video. And so it's no longer like a summer locations video, it's just gonna be a general locations video. I've decided that because it's a high of 64 today, I don't even think my pool is open anymore, so I'm actually gonna nix that off the list, because it's no longer like a location that's super pleasurable in this kind of weather. It's like sunny now, but it was really cloudy early on, and I have never read by the pool, and I really don't see myself doing that anyway, so we're gonna check that one off. But what we are going to do today is we are going to go to the library to read for an hour there. Now, I have never just like sat in the library and read before. When I go to the library, it's to get books or for an event or go do some writing, and so this is the first time I'm going to bring a book with the intention to read. It is currently 1:20 in the afternoon, and I don't really know. It's a Tuesday, so middle of the week. I don't really know. I'm sure that this would be different kinds of pleasurable depending on the time and weekday, so I'm hoping it'll be kind of quiet. I've never brought my own book into the library before. I don't foresee there being a problem, but to make sure I'm being consistent within this video, I have decided to pick up the next Legendborn book. I think it's a similar kind of, it's obviously a similar story, similar like font to page ratio. I think it'll be a nice consistent thing to have throughout this video. So today we are going to be tackling the library, and we're going to be starting Bloodmarked. Okay, I forgot to debrief yesterday when I got home from the library, but in a shocking turn of events, I actually did not enjoy reading there. It was like a comfortable chair, but it wasn't too comfortable. I couldn't have any snacks or water with me, or I could have water, but I couldn't have anything else with me. There really, in my library in particular, there aren't a ton of places to just like sit and like read in a comfy spot. There are a lot of places to sit, but a lot of it is in like this large working space space upstairs, in which I went up there to go look around and there were a lot of people, and I was like, oh no. And I didn't bring my headphones with me, which honestly might have been like a fatal flaw, because I ended up sitting kind of near the like checkout desk and the exit, and I just heard everyone coming and going, and there was a lot of like kids being very loud, and the noise like echoed off the wall, and like the seat was fine, but like I couldn't have stayed there much longer. So surprisingly, I didn't really like it. I read, I think, 54 pages, which I think is just mildly less than my average, if at all, really. So I don't think like the reading was affected, even though I found myself having to reread because I would get stuck like listening to conversations, or like or like somebody would like sit right behind me and I'd be like kind of thing. So I wasn't as locked in that situation, I think, because there just like wasn't like, I think if there's gonna be outside stimulus, I think there has to be a lot of it so I can kind of drown it out, whereas like if there's only a couple people, like I'm gonna pay attention to everything, like we saw at the park. So not my favorite reading location. So I don't really, which makes sense, like I don't normally go to my library to read, but this is a good test to see if I would like it, and it turns out I don't, unfortunately. So we are down to the last few locations, and I think my next one is going to be reading at my kitchen table, and I think this is gonna go terribly, just as a prediction. It could go really well, but I foresee some things getting in the way, because I do read at my kitchen table all of the time with my Kindle, and the problems that happen to me there, I am assuming are going to happen when I am doing it in a controlled environment. So that is going to be the next test location. As predicted, reading at the kitchen table was not the best hour. I definitely read less than normal, and my butt hurts after sitting for an hour in that chair. I had roommates come in and out. I was like moving around so that my butt wouldn't go numb. I like was looking over the dishes and I'm like, oh, I kind of need to do those. So like it wasn't a super enjoyable experience, and yet I read at the table all the time when I'm eating. But I'm normally like eating while reading on a Kindle, so I don't have to hold it. And so sitting there with a physical book was a little bit different than I normally do. So definitely lower end of the enjoyment spectrum for sure for that book. But got that checked off, and it's really good to compare it to the rest of these locations. Now I have 2 left to do, and I intend to do both of them tomorrow. So let's go up into the mountains. All right, today we are tackling the last 2 locations in this experiment. We are going to be reading on top of a hike, and we are going to be reading in the car with a beautiful view. So I have a session up in the mountains today, and I am decided to turn it into an entire mountain day. And so we are going to be bringing Blood Marked. We're going to get 2 hours of reading in at the minimum here, and I am so excited. It's a beautiful day outside. I think it's going to be a really good time. I just went through my entrance, and the poor park ranger at the front was like, I pulled up, I was ready to hand her my pass, and she was like, hey, because of the shutdown, we can't do any passes or fees. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry, have a good day. I feel so bad for them. as protected as I'm gonna get. I'm like, it's windy. It's windy. Okay, I made it to the 50-minute mark and I finished part 1 and I was just getting so cold and I was like, you know what, that's it, like I'm out of here. But 50 minutes reading on top of the mountain was pretty good considering it was ridiculously windy. So now I'm just kind of like running down this mountain because it's kind of steep. And just slightly getting warmer. I thankfully had another jacket with me and so I wore that while I was up there, but my nose is running, like I need to go sit in the warmth of my car. So we're on our way down. Alright, I'm back in my car now, and according to my All Trails hiking app, I hiked 2.16 miles, 466 feet of elevation gain, and about 54 movement minutes. So really not a bad hike at all. Pretty easy and fast. I didn't read nearly as much at the top as I wanted to. Obviously, it's way below my average for a lot of reasons. Like reason number 1, I only read for about 50 minutes, so I already cut that by 10 minutes, but it was because I was just getting so cold. even with my extra layers, it was just like constant wind the whole time. I was like, I don't need to like start part 2 to continue this. So I was like, you know what, I read enough, that's fine. But then even within those 50 minutes, I kept getting distracted because, you know, I'd stop and like put on my jacket, or I'd stop because people would come up and they'd have really cute dogs, so I'd want to look, or, you know, I'd just stop and like look at the view for a minute. I even had multiple people ask me to take their group photos, and so a lot of interruptions for sure while we were reading up there. It was very enjoyable though. Like obviously I love it here. I come up to the mountains all the time. I love hiking. I love the fall foliage. It was really beautiful. I think it would have been a lot better had there not been wind, but I did pick a very notoriously windy part of Shenandoah National Park to hike today. It is always windy every single time I'm up there, but I've hiked with my books in the past and I've run on top of hikes before, so this is not a new thing for me. It's about the same. One good thing about where I found was I was partially blocked by the wind, but really not really. But mostly what happens is that like my butt gets really numb from sitting on rocks, but I actually found that really comfortable position, so I could have sat there for a long time without the wind. So I really give it my best bet. Was pleasurable for sure. I love the experience, but like for sitting long periods of time, no. So I am going to drive to an overlook now because I have a couple session coming up pretty soon at that overlook. And so we're going to do our last and final location, which is going to be sitting in my car with a beautiful view. And that's going to be our last part of the video. So let's go. Alright, here is the car view of the overlook. Here is the snack pile. Here is the book. Let's get reading. Okay, I didn't look at the numbers, but I feel like I flew through this hour of reading. Shit's going down, and so I'm getting more into the action, so I think I was just flying through the pages faster. It also helped that I was nice and warm, maybe a little bit too warm in here, but I was nice and comfortable out of the wind, had some snacks, had some water. So I have read books in my car a lot over the years, so this is something that is very familiar to me. Like people coming in and out, like I'll look up, be interested in what's going on around me, look out at the lights, at the view for a little bit, but then I can easily return back to my book. So enjoyable experience for sure, one that I have a lot of practice in, and one that I definitely will continue to be doing. It was mildly uncomfortable that I just got kind of hot because I'm staring like directly into the sun, and like I've been messing with the visors to try to like stay out of the sun at that point. So definitely not the best location for sun wise, but like view wise, absolutely perfect. So I think I am going to upload all these videos, take like note of all of the page numbers and how I felt about each location, and then I'm going to come back to you after I put all that together, and we'll talk about conclusions of this very first experiment. All right, let's do our debrief for our very first reader experiment video. Obviously, things did not go exactly to plan. I meant to do all of this in the summertime. Starting this video in July, I meant to also do the pool, but things happen, that's okay. This was a good first attempt anyway. I will definitely redo this video in a little bit, maybe give it a year or two, but honestly it was a good attempt and the data is really fascinating to me, so let's go through it. I also realized as I was going through the videos that I like recapped maybe half the locations and I did not give ratings or like exact page numbers for most of them, so maybe that was just like me saving it for the end anyway. But anyway, I have all the data. Chronologically, we'll go through and I'll show you what my like pleasure reading score was out of 5 for each location, and then exactly how many pages I read at that location. So the first location was my bed. I gave it a happiness score of 4 out of 5 because it is nice and cozy. I feel safe there. I can read forever and ever, but you know, you're tossing around a little bit and your arms get kind of tired. So 4 out of 5 for that, but I did read 54 pages. Next was my reading chair. I also gave that 4 out of 5 because, again, safe, comfortable, I do it all the time, but you have to keep moving your legs around and it's not the most comfortable thing ever, but it is quite nice, and I read 55 pages there. And then at the coffee shop, I gave that one a pleasure rating of 5 out of 5. I really love being in coffee shops. I do it all the time. It's just one of my happy places, and that was the first time that I just sat there with the intention just to read, and I really loved it. Not only that, but like we have good Wi-Fi, it's climate controlled, there's always going to be like a sweet treat or like a really good drink, so it's just a very happy time all around. And in that coffee shop I read 54 pages. Next we went to the park. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 because I really enjoyed being out there. I loved seeing all the animals, but it was so weather dependent. In the beginning it was just so hot, and then towards the end I was really afraid of the rain, and so I really got the full spectrum of that, and I was kind of lucky that I wasn't attacked by bugs or anything like that. So being outside can be super pleasurable, but it's so weather dependent. And in the park I read 50 pages. At the bar, I gave that a rating of 4 out of 5, but it's definitely because I was a little tipsy. I was in a safe like space that I've gone to a ton of times, and so I felt really happy there, but it was pretty loud, and as it got later in the day, more people started arriving. And I didn't particularly love that, but I was kind of tipsy, so I ended up staying there quite a while afterwards too. So that definitely inflated the score, but I still enjoyed it. And at that bar, within the hour, I read 46 pages. And then the next one, and then we skip ahead several weeks to the library, and I actually surprisingly gave that a pleasure score of 1 out of 5 because, like, yeah, the chair was mildly comfortable, but it wasn't the most comfortable. I felt super exposed. There was a lot of noise. I didn't bring my headphones, but I'm happy I didn't because I realized I didn't wear my headphones for any of the other locations either, so this was definitely a real testament. I think it has a lot to do with my particular library and that it's not really meant for you to chill at for a long time. It really is like a do activities kind of place, so I think that has to do a lot with my library. But there I read 54 pages. Next, I read at my kitchen table, and I gave that one a score of 1 out of 5 because the chair was uncomfortable, like the table was uncomfortable, and my roommates kept coming in, and so it distracted me. Like, I'm like, I'll look it over, I'm like, oh man, the dishes need to be cleaned, like, oh, I should really clean that countertop. So it just like, it was too much of my normal everyday, and I read there quite a lot, but it's normally for like 20 or 30 minutes as I'm eating kind of thing. So not for like I'm gonna sit here for an hour and not do anything else. I also do a lot where like I'm baking while I'm reading, so like sitting there I'm usually doing other things. So the fact that I was just sitting there, I was kind of getting itchy, so I didn't really enjoy that. That's definitely a me thing though. But I did read 44 pages there. And then we went on the hike, and I gave that a score of 3 out of 5 because I love the view. I love hiking. It was really beautiful, but it was really, really cold and windy. Even though I was able to find a comfortable sitting position, that's not normally the case. And so again, it's super dependent on weather. And I also picked a really popular hike, so there were a ton of people up there. You know, I can't help but hear what they're saying, and I got asked a couple of times to go and take their photos. So definitely not like the best reading location, even though it was pretty nice. Up there I read 30 pages, but again, I left 10 minutes early because I was like, I'm done. And then the last location was my car, and although I've read there a lot, I gave it a 3 out of 5 because, like, yeah, I'm very comfortable in there, but in that particular situation it was getting kind of hot. I cracked the windows eventually, but I was getting kind of hot with the sun directly coming at me. And yes, I could have put my sunshade up or, you know, done any of them or things, but the point was to have a beautiful view that I can look up to whenever I wanted. And so not the most comfortable location, especially because I couldn't really move around a lot, but I've sat in that seat and read for hours and hours over the years. And in there, I read 56 pages. So to go in order of like happiness score, number 1 is the coffee shop, which I if I had thought about it longer, I could have pinned that as my number 1, but I'm thrilled that that was that was my number 1. And then for all of the places that I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, I gave my bed, the chair, the reading chair, and the bar for number 2 locations. And of those, 2 of them are free and the other 2 are not. And then with a 3.5 score was the park. And then for 3 out of 5 stars, we have both the hike and the car. And then down at the bottom with 1 out of 5 stars, we have both the library and the kitchen. Now, if we go in order of how many pages I read in each location, they're not too far apart. I'm pretty consistent with how much I read within an hour. But the place I read the most was in the car for 56 pages, and then my reading chair. And then I have a 3-way tie between the bed, the coffee shop, and the library. And then the park, and then the bar, and then the kitchen, and then at the very end, the hike. So across the board, the best places I would think from my rating, top of my happiness charts and close to the top of how many pages I read, are in my bed, in my reading chair, and at coffee shops, which is not even kind of surprising to me, and I'm kind of thrilled by that data, because that means I can continue to read in bed with no guilt. Like, I have tested other locations, and yes, reading in my bed does make me happiest, and I read quite a lot. And that's kind of what I wanted to get out of this experiment. I wanted to see, you know, how my other locations that I frequently read at, you know, stand up to the standard, which is my bed. So I have a few other experiments planned, but I don't think I'm gonna do them anytime soon, maybe in a month or 2. But I'm gonna do things that I'm listening to, or the times of day, or a few others. But if you have any reader experiments that you think of that you want me to do, or you think would be really cool, please drop them in the comments below. I think that'd be fascinating. I've thrown myself back to my high school science fair days, and it's really, really fun. But I thoroughly enjoyed this, and if you want to see more of my thoughts on Legendborn or Bloodmarked, they are in my reading vlogs from past months from my monthly TBR, so more of my thoughts are in those vlogs for sure. But thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.